Hey guys, welcome back to Rising Stars, and I'm your new host. My name is Roxana, and I would like also to mention that the Rising Stars is sponsored by Urban Eats MTL, so go check out their social media. And today episode we have an amazing actor. I met him actually on set, so when I'm saying that he's an amazing actor, I did have an opportunity to witness it. Welcome to Rising Stars, Nathan Foss. Hi, hey. Nathan.
How you doing?
Good, thank you. It's not like a very sunny day, so thank you very much for taking your time and coming and spending this morning with us. So as I said, I met you on the set. You were my cheating husband.
Yeah.
It was really a fun one, and I really had an opportunity to multiple times actually to see you in action. Let's dive into talking about your acting career. How did it start? When did it start? It's a pretty common question that we always ask here, and then we'll have a bunch of others that will be different. So, what was the beginning of the journey?
So, hilariously, I'm like the super cliche of I was in middle school, and my buddy and I were just looking for stupid stuff to do, and basically we talked to each other, and he was like, well, I dare you to audition for the musical.
I dare you.
Literally, yes.
I wouldn't say it's a very cliche thing, to be honest.
I mean, I've heard it in movies or scripts before, so like it's kind of one of those things, and he dared me. So I went in, I kid you not, I sang Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
You sang. So okay. So
on
top, I didn't know that about you. So you also sing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a musical. It was The Mikado, actually, by Gilbert and Sullivan. I think that's who wrote The Mikado. Pretty sure. Maybe the internet will correct me. But but anyway, yeah. So I sang Twinkle Twinkle Little Star for it, and then I booked the not the lead, but the what's it called?
Supporting.
Yeah, supporting. I played the Grand Poobah. It's a hilarious name for a character, which is funny because then that was like the first time that I had to do basically multiple accents and like multiple like different positions for this character. So like basically the way that it worked is the character within the government of the play, like in the story, had multiple positions in the government, and he wanted the king's position. It was the only one he didn't have. So every time I played like a different role advising the king, I had to he completely switch character, like because it was just for funny, like it was just to make it actually funny. So yeah, that was like the first time I acted, and after I walked off the stage after the first performance, like a whole bunch of people started coming up to me and they were like, holy crap, you were incredible. Like I was like this, like I was just standing there like, I mean, I just did what I was told to do.
But what was the feeling? I mean, like it was the first time
it
and you
surprised me. You know, like, because, like, I didn't really think much about it. I was just having fun. Like, I just enjoyed doing it. So, like, I didn't really, like, consider it until they came up to me and started saying like I was doing a good job, and then kind of it just clicked and I was like, oh, maybe I'm good at this. And then from there I just kept doing it like in high school and middle school, and then I would do like drama camps and stuff like that because I'm from Nova Scotia, actually, not from here. So
okay. But so you after the high school, did you pursue towards the acting? Did you go and study acting?
Yep.
So it wasn't in the, I mean, it's Nova Scotia, right? You don't have CJEP. It was a university, college?
Basically we do grade 10 to grade 12. And then after that you would go to university or college. So what I did is I won like the drama scholarship or whatever from when I finished in grade 12. And then I went to Neptune Theatre School, which is basically like it's called the pre-professional training program. And so what they do is they do like a year of like really concentrated, like basically it's a drama conservatory program, more or less.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So they taught us theater, film acting, like scene study, like basically everything that you went to MSOPA, right?
Yes.
Very similar, but like for a year instead of like the shorter, like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So
I think it's 2 stages for
you
her.
had like a solid background in that one. Where did you take? Where did you go from that? So you graduated. Do you have the agent, by the way?
Yeah.
So you got the agent from the very beginning, or you kind of kept going intuitively? How you were discovering the industry? Because I find that it's not an easy also to navigate through.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't get an agent for quite a while. After I graduated from the pre-professional training program, I wanted to go to the National Theatre School. I auditioned like right after, like they basically came and they actually like auditioned us in our school, which was pretty cool. I made the like top 20 like list. So basically like they have 20 people and then they cut it down to 12. But I didn't get it. But then I was like, I want to go to Montreal to see what it's like, because if I'm gonna do it again, then maybe like I want to know if I even want to like live here and spend time here. So I came here. My aunt was actually living here, so I lived with her for a couple of years, and I worked in a bar. And then I kind of just like was like, oh, this adulting stuff is fun. So I just like kind of cruised 2 years of like working in bars, but then I also like did some like camera acting and stuff on the side. I did a project for Concordia, like they did a Concordia University student had me in, and I did, I can't remember the name of the movie. It was a short film. It's escaping me what the name of it was. That was like one of the first things that I actually booked when I came here, so it was pretty cool. Yeah, it's escaping what the name of it was. I think, Budai, that's what it was called.
How did you feel? Because I wanted to ask you, do you remember that first role that brought you to the first booking the first film? How did it feel?
It was cool. It was kind of one of those things where like I reached out to the guy, and then I went into like, they set up a room, and then like a whole bunch of people came for auditions, I would assume, and so I read for it, and then he was like, yeah, you're great, like we're just gonna take you, and like right in the audition room.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Like on the spot.
It was cool. Yeah, that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I was just about to
like almost ever.
It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, usually it's like, thank you, okay, and then you never hear again. But
that's another thing.
Usually 100 of those before you get like, But so I went in and I did that, and it was cool because I got to play a paraplegic character. So I was like sitting in a wheelchair for like the entire set, and I've never been in a wheelchair before. So as soon as I got there, I was like, okay, where's this wheelchair? Because like I want to sit in it and stay in it all day. Like I stayed in it all day, like even for lunch and everything. Like I rolled around in it because like I wanted to know what it would be like to not have the ability to walk, just so like you problem solve differently. You know what I mean? Like you like if you can't reach something, you would find another way to do it, or like if you needed to transfer yourself over to something, like you have to figure out how to do that. Like where would you open a door? Like all those different things that like I wouldn't consider because I can walk. So that was cool.
That's actually, I had a question, it was at the later stage, about tips or tricks for the actors as well. It's actually a very good one, is to get yourself, when you have an opportunity, if you're doing something that is not common for you, to get yourself into, I'll keep it in my head also for whatever I have that opportunity. So you've done theater, and you actually started with theater, and you've done film as well. Which one, do you have any preferences, you would say, and what are the differences between, from your perspective, between doing TV film and the I personally think that theater is much more complicated because you have one opportunity, you either messed it up, you don't have 25 takes, right?
True.
So that's why I personally think that like theater is, like it's much more complicated from your perspective and your experience.
As an actor, I love theater because it's an experience that you can't get on set because you don't, like you have the crew and you have like the other actors that are like hanging out like behind the camera if they're not busy doing like other things and stuff. So you have somewhat of an audience, but at the same time they're all focused on their jobs too. So it's kind of like sometimes you can all stand there and watch the scene, but most of the time it's like we got to get ready for the next thing or whatever. So it's not always the same vibe for like watching this stuff. So in live theater, you get that audience interaction that kind of like fuels of like, when I did this, they responded really well. So that is cool. And it feeds your choices as an actor, like to kind of feed off the crowd, which then makes you have different, like when you play a scene, like you make different choices based on your scene partner's interaction with you. And then also, to some degree, the audience's reaction for you, because you're putting on a show, right? So you do have to kind of consider both. I mean, obviously, my first priority is the scene partner, because like when you're in the scene with them, you have to make sure that you're keeping your beats and you're doing all your stuff. But it is fun to like get that feedback from the audience. Whereas film, I find, is like very concentrated and fast, and you have to know your lines very quickly, and you have to be like very off book. Like, I mean, you do with theater as well, but you have longer to learn your lines in theater usually, because like usually you have like 2 months or 3 months to like rehearse. which is the other thing that I was going to say that makes it super awesome, because you can really dive into a scene and you can find stuff that you wouldn't have time to find, like in film typically.
It's fast.
Yeah,
fast.
exactly. But I like that too about film as well, because then you don't have like, it's like everything that you learn by investigating yourself in life and in theater is all thrown into that very quick medium of film, where it's like you don't have time, you have to come up with something fast, then you have to talk to the director, you have to figure out how they direct, like, which I always find fascinating because every director's different, and then you have to like learn how to listen to their language and then also communicate their language so that you can get what they're looking for. Yeah.
Okay, so interesting point. Question number one, and I didn't have the question in my head, but now I have it. So for theater, and I was always curious because I did theater back in days when I was in the university, which was a long time ago. How do you learn the lines? Like any tips and tricks? Because I mean, when you have a scene, yes, you have one day technically before to prepare it.
Usually,
yeah, usually, exactly. But still, you have some time. Here you have to learn like 100 or like 100 pages of script. How to memorize it? Do you have any tips
for
or
theater?
trick? For theater, yeah, because it's another thing which is different from film and TV, right? You have to memorize like a ton of script, a ton of information to keep in your head.
That is true, yeah. I do it the same way that I would do it with film, except it's longer, and I do it like chunk by chunk. So like, usually we have a long time to rehearse, so that also helps, just because you get to learn it through osmosis of like, I've done this scene like 100 times.
It's going over
so
repetition,
like, yeah,
right?
it starts to like sit in your body, and like depending on where you are on the stage, like you know that, okay, when I'm here I have to say this, when I'm over here I have to say that. That's a trap though, be careful with that, because then if you get too involved with that, if your scene partner changes something up, then you'll be like, oh, and then you forget your line or whatever, right? So you have to be careful with that.
And
but
ability
it does
to improvise
help
as well, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That would, okay.
So like I like to learn by there's a technique that I use that is you read the lines out loud, like verbally out loud, so you can hear yourself talking and you're actually doing the action of speaking the lines. You don't need to put too much like emotion or anything behind it. You can if you want, but I typically try to keep it straight for the first little while. So you read the whole thing through, and then you take it and then you write the first letter of every single word in the whole thing, like on a separate piece of paper, and you say the word as you're writing the first letter, and you go all the way down through the whole thing.
Wow.
And then after that, you can put the script aside, and I kid you not, and everyone's like, no, it's impossible. But yeah, you just look at the letters, and then you can actually say the whole thing. Usually, like after like once or twice of reading the whole thing. So then you put the letters aside, and typically you can remember like a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it. And then you start again, and you read through the whole entire script, and then you put that aside, and then you look at the letters. And eventually you'll get to the point where you don't need the script, you can just look at the letters, and you'll just remember. And then eventually you can put that aside, and you'll also.
I want to try it. Like I have my acting class on Tuesday, so I think I'm going to try. I never tried that method.
Personally, I think it works because you're learning kinesthetically because you're writing it.
Yeah.
You're learning verbally because you're hearing yourself say it, and you're learning visually because you're reading it. So like you're using all three. But you need obviously a lot of time to do it, so it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes I just read the thing and. Like, especially if you're just given a line correction, like on set, you're just like, well, now it's this. Okay.
Yeah. Is there a room for improvisation when you're in theater, or you always guys stick like word by word to the script?
How do I put it? There is room for improvisation in the sense that, like, if you screw up like one or two words that aren't a big deal, it's very similar to like film in that way. Like I mean, well, it depends on the film you're doing. If you're doing like a really big film that like needs to be word perfect, then that's different, or like a commercial or something. But if you're doing theater, you could screw up like a but or an or an and, or like you know what I mean, like those joining words. As long as you get the point across.
You still stick to this main story.
And if it's Shakespeare, like obviously if you're screwing up your words, it's gonna be probably a problem. But yeah, like you wanna. But it's not really about the text per se, because generally by the time you get on the stage and you're doing it over and over again, like you've had a couple months of doing this. So like it's very rare that like. At least for me anyway, like very rare that I'll screw up the lines. It does happen, but it's usually you catch yourself, and then your scene partner, if they're nice or if it's possible within the
If
scene.
they're nice.
It literally happened to me
Okay.
once. Like I was playing Romeo, and like there's this really key moment where I have to say a piece of information that ties two things together, and if I don't say it the right way, the audience isn't going to understand like what happened to make whatever was going on make sense. I can't remember exactly what it was, but essentially I said the wrong thing, and then I was standing there and I was like, oh crap, I need to say this right so that the audience understands what's going on like in the plot. And then my scene partner was like, you mean, and then he like corrected me, and then I was, yes, that's what I meant, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like that kind of, like when you're talking about lines specifically,
Yeah.
but typically for improvisation, it's more not necessarily about the lines, it's more about I'm gonna throw something different at my scene partner in terms of an action, as long as it doesn't change like
Makes
the
sense,
plot,
yeah, fit.
or like I stand in a different place, or like as long as it doesn't screw up lighting cues or things like that, or I deliver it a different way that only you and I would know, like only the actors know that I said this differently, or I put a different intention behind it. So like to me, that's more of the improvisation for theater, and also film. You can do that as well, but. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the second question, because you mentioned about the directors and different directors eventually direct differently. Any also tips or advices how, because when you're on film, they expect you to catch it quickly, right? Like they don't have time to explain. So any tips or tricks, or how do you usually, when you come on set, when you see the director, how do you navigate? Like, what do you do to get that understanding of what the director wants quickly? Do you do any preps? Do you go search their work, or like what goes behind?
I think that comes down to just like developing life skills and like interpersonal communication skills. Like, and actually, I would say the number one thing is, and I say this because this is something that I really had to learn. Like when I finished theater school, and when I was going through theater school, and when I was in high school, and then after like that finished, and then there was a period of like in my 20s where it was still kind of happening to me. Probably around like 26 or 27 is kind of when I figured this out. The idea that don't take it personally, because a lot of times like a director or like the story needs you to do something, and if you sit there and you're fighting it, or you're not understanding, generally it's because either you're not listening like well, like you're not open and like receptive and listening well, which is a trait I think that is really important as for an actor, is to be able to sit there and listen and like take information. Doesn't mean you always have to agree with it, but like you're there to do a job, so if you're open and you're listening and you're responsive, it helps, right? So don't take it personally. Like if they give you a direction, a lot of times they're frustrated at themselves because they don't know how to give you that direction, or they think that it's you that's not getting it, when in reality, like there is some kind of miscommunication there. So if you focus on the miscommunication rather than like he's telling me to do this and I don't agree, and then you do this, you kind of just go, okay, what they're saying I'm not understanding, so I need to communicate in a way that makes it so that we can understand each other, or we can speak the same language, like I said before.
So it's more like coming also with the understanding at first, don't take anything personally.
Yeah, big time, because you might be doing some crazy stuff, and like it's very uncomfortable sometimes, but like that's what's fun to me about acting, is like making yourself uncomfortable, I guess.
And then the second thing, I guess, is that you're there as an actor who can have his own view on what the character should do, but in the end of the day, to your point, you come to do the job, and there are specific expectations from you. Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, it's a team effort, but at the same time, like, that director put in a lot of work to make that movie, like a lot of work. Like they have to talk to all the crew, they have to deal with this. Usually they have to deal with the script. Sometimes they're just hired by the producer who's dealt with the script, but oftentimes like they have some input. So they've seen this thing a lot longer than you. They have a lot larger of a vision than you do.
Bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes you have to like kind of let it go and be like, okay, that's what I thought it was, but it's not, so that's all right. Like I did a feature film once where I was actually the first AD for it. And I learned by doing that halfway through the film, the director hadn't communicated that this was kind of supposed to be more of a comedy than anything else. And we kind of discovered it about halfway through, and then like the actors were all like, oh, oops.
Oops.
Like we were taking this way too seriously, and then they all got it, and then from there it started like meshing and it started working. Like.
But they
so.
didn't reshoot the first part of the.
Well, they didn't actually. It still worked
was
anyway. So yeah, I mean, it was like a B movie zombie movie, so it was fun. But yeah.
How would you define yourself as like what kind of genre of an actor you are? Like, do you have any preferences, comedy, of a drama, or maybe I know action movies, or you're a multidimensional actor?
For me, it's always been about the story. I like not even really the character. It's more to me it's more about the story that they're trying to tell. And if I like the story, then I'll just enjoy it, even if it's a small part. Like I don't care, because to me it's like about the story that we're trying to tell. Because I like watching movies and I like reading books and I like storytelling more than necessarily playing a specific individual character. So to me it's more about like. If it's a good drama, it's a good drama. If it's a good comedy, it's a good comedy. But one of the things that I've learned doing this is to find the joy and the light in as many scenes as you possibly can. Because, if you're in a really dark, gritty, like emotional drama, right? People joke because that's how you cope with like dark things, right? Yeah. So a lot of times like you'll want to play this like really dark like scene and like feel all terrible and like maybe cry or whatever, but like a lot of times the joy and the levity is the better direction, because that's what a human being would do. They'd be like, well, this is shit, and then they sit there and then they might cry, but like it's almost like the truth about it is what makes it like impactful for an audience. I think so. Like if you play the moment truthfully, you might find some comedy where you don't think it should be. You might find some drama where you don't think it should be. Like, so I think just being open to all of it is like the cooler thing to do, I guess. I don't know. But like, I like comedy, obviously, because it's super fun.
Yeah, I was in the set with you lately. Yeah. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was very good. Do you have any dream role? Like, let's say you can either pick from a movie, so like if I would be the happiest ever if I got that role, or if you have anything in mind.
Lately, I really think it would be cool to play like something in like medieval, like
really?
Yeah, like I'd love to play like a knight or a lord, or like just like something like with sword fights and stuff. Like that would be cool, Like I mean, it doesn't even have to be sword fights. It could be like just Game of Thrones talking, like where it's like court intrigue and stuff like that. I've always wanted to do. Like it would be fun. I don't know if I have the look for it, but it would be like super fun. It'd be super fun to do. I love medieval stuff. I'm like a big history person for that. So yeah.
Okay, I want to touch base on another side of you, and I actually just discovered as you were talking that you also did did some work behind the camera. So, but I want to touch base on another thing, because I know that you also do a voiceover work, and when we talk about the voiceover work, you also do the books, right? So. Tell a little bit about that thing, and how did you come up with that one? And the interesting thing is also, what is the difference between doing the voiceover for the books versus doing just the voiceover for the character? If it's, I don't know, video gaming or dubbing or whatever, just like the voiceover regular versus doing the books voiceover.
Well, I love voiceover, first of all.
I know that you do.
That's
do a lot of it.
probably my favorite medium, because
really?
it's just purely imagination. And that's what I love about it. Because like, let's say even if you're doing motion capture where like it's two physical actors working together, which I haven't had the chance to do yet, but I would love to. I would love to do motion capture. It'd be super fun because it's like theater. But even then, like you're like Gollum, for example, like Andy Serkis, like when he plays Gollum, like he's physicalizing it, yes, but like there's also a really big aspect of imagination there. Like, but then if you're in a booth, like just delivering lines for a video game, right, and you're not even doing motion capture, again, it's the same thing. Like, let's say the scene that you're in the Sahara Desert and you're like choking and dying because you're like you've run out of water and like you're exhausted, like, but you're standing in a booth with like foam walls all around you, like you're not in a desert. So like it's this idea of I'm in the desert, I'm in the desert, I'm in the desert. Like, you got to put that into your mind, and like, it's like, what does that do to your throat? What does that do
So that
to your
goes into
body?
the
What does that?
physicality.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are all those things? Like, I can feel the heat on my arms and my face, and it's like I'm sweating, and I'm like, you have to put yourself in there really mentally in order to be able to give a good performance, because everything physical affects the voice. So like, you have to kind of go through this physical journey without having the assistance of like being on a set with hot lights. At least you could pull from for, you know, I mean, you kind of have to do that if like you're working green screen live action too, but like the cool part about voiceover, I think, is that you are in typically like a little booth, like with maybe a director, because often it's just you by yourself. And like, so you have to self-direct too, which is fun. So you said
So
what, the audiobooks, like,
yeah,
what's the
versus
difference?
what's
Okay.
the difference? Because you also you do a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah, that's my main thing. So audiobooks, it's a full, like, you're reading like 350 pages often. So it's like a 10-hour audiobook. So like, this thing could take you like multiple weeks or months. So first of all, like, when you're working, you have to like mark down like the character voices that you choose to use if you didn't have time to do them before, because I like to do them before, but you don't always get that option. So sometimes you just, because the deadline is too close, so you just have to read. And at which point, as long as and you do have to read the book first, obviously, because you can't go through and then find out the character's Russian like halfway through and then just be like, oh, and then you have to go all the way back to the beginning and like redo all those voices. Like, that did happen to me when I first started, and then I was like, okay, I got to read the book, Nathan. Stop being lazy. But yeah, so you do have to read the book first at least. But then, yeah, so you go along. The difference is an audiobook is very long term, so you're reading for like 4 to 6 hours a day, 4 to 6 hours a day maybe. Multiple characters, so I might play like 40 or 50 or 60 characters like in this book.
You're changing the voice?
Yeah, I mean, I do. You don't have to. Like, there's multiple ways of doing narration. You can just do it where it's like a slight change so that the reader understands that, okay, this person's talking now, or okay, this person's responding to them or whatever. But I do like to invent like multiple different voices as much as I can. I mean, I'm one person, so there's only so much you can do. But it's fun because you get to play off yourself too, right? So you have to be fast. Like, you have to think of it like, okay, right now I'm like, let's say it's a romance book. Right now I'm the romantic male lead, right? So then I have to like speak a certain way, and then all of a sudden you have to switch to the female like lead and respond as a woman would do. So you have to be really fast, because like if you pause it and then switch and then go again, it takes a little bit longer than if you can just riff like back and forth, like with just like switching in the moment. I mean, obviously there's some things like you'll have a moment where like the man says something and then the woman's supposed to interrupt. That it's better to pause there, I find, because then you can pause and listen back for 2 seconds and then come in and interrupt yourself and then just keep going. But a lot of times it's like, that's the challenge for audiobooks, is you're doing a lot of characters for a long time, so you have to use sustainable voices. You might not get into it quite as much as you would do if you're like in a video game screaming like grenade and like there's an enemy over there, because like the person who's listening to this thing is listening to it for 10 hours. So if you're doing that, like, they'll be like, holy crap, like, I gotta turn this off after 30 minutes listening to it because it's exhausting. So yeah, so you tone it down a bit, but it still has to be believable and truthful. Yeah.
Do you rehearse?
Well, for an audiobook, like, you don't really have time. Yeah, because like the rehearsing is reading the book ahead of time.
Reading the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know what's going on. Yeah.
Okay. Another question, and I remember when I met you on set and we had a quick chat, I discovered that you are the actor who is actually living off acting. So your acting is your career, your profession, because we all know that in this industry, unless you're in that top like 1% of the actors, like then who really can afford that, and they have they're booking the roles continuously. So in majority of the cases, it's hobby, passion, side hustle, call it whatever. But still, most of the people, they would have their part-time job, full-time jobs, whatever. For me, it was like fascinating when I said like, oh no, like I take it seriously. It's like it can be a hobby, so you do it as you live of it. So why, how, a little bit story behind that, because it's rare. I find
Oh, yeah.
I met a lot of now, like since I'm 3.5 years in the industry, but still I met a lot of people, all of them side jobs, whatever, myself the same. So like how do you cope with that? How do you build around the whole, it's technically your life is built around that as your main job?
Yeah, so there's multiple things. Some of them are just like smart financial decisions. Like I don't have a car. I lucked out because when I moved here, remember I said I was with my aunt.
Yeah,
so like I left her place for a bit and I lived with an ex-girlfriend, and then I moved around the city a little bit. But then I ended up coming back around the time that she decided to move back to Nova Scotia. Well, she's in PEI right now actually. But her apartment, the way that the lease worked is no one ever actually left the lease, so they could never raise the rent, right? So like I went on the lease, like, and then she left, so now like I am on the lease, so they couldn't raise the rent other than like, you know, every year they can raise it a certain amount. So I was lucky there in the sense that like I have a really, really low rent, like compared to like most Canadians right now. Like, oh my God. So that's one thing. And planning, like I said, I don't have kids. I don't have like dependents. Like I don't have any of that stuff.
Mortgage.
So yeah, exactly. So I didn't plan. I planned my life specifically financially that way. But that takes like a lot of sacrifice too, right? Because like I don't get to go out and do like all kinds of cool stuff like all the time. But I do in the sense because I get to be an actor, which is pretty awesome.
That's the cool stuff
Yeah,
already,
that's
right?
that's the cool stuff for
exactly.
me, exactly.
Yeah.
So I based my life around it, and I made like life decisions that allow me to do it. And I'm lucky enough that I get just enough roles like as I'm going along to kind of be able to afford to do that. I made the choice, I think it was 5 years ago. Yeah, it's around 5 years ago, where I was like, okay, enough's enough. I'm not working at bars anymore. I'm not doing any of this other stuff. I have enough money saved up. I'm just gonna start doing like voiceover and audiobooks like full time. Like I'm gonna find authors. I'm like gonna reach out to them on Amazon. I'm gonna like I email them with like samples of their book, and I'm like, do you want to work with me? Like I do. I audition for as many audiobooks as I can get my hands on. I audition for as many voice gigs as I can get my hands on. I do, you know, like the read frame stuff and with you basically. I do as many projects as I can possibly get my hands on, because I made the choice, sink or swim. Like for me, it was like a lot of entrepreneurs talk about the moment where they're like, I quit my job and now this is my job. I think that worked really well for me, in the sense where I just dived off the deep end and I was like, this is what I have to do, and if I don't do it, like I'm going to starve, or I'm not going to have a house to sleep in. So I put myself in that position where it is do or die, and that's what kind of made it work for me, because I didn't have a choice, you know, like, yeah. So it was a combination of really smart financial preparation, or as much as I can be, mixed with some luck there, mixed with putting myself in a position where I didn't have a choice. And again, a little bit of luck in the sense that I've managed to get the gigs that I need so far. Yeah.
But that's good. Like you approached. That's another thing, right? You took the decision. You've chose also one of the thing that can also bring like a sustainable, somewhat income, which is, for example, the audiobooks. And then you didn't sit and wait for it, right? Like you go and you approached by yourself. That's just a different. It's the right mindset.
Yeah.
Like if you do nothing, nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah. No. Exactly. And for me, it's like I mean, you can get an agent, and my agent's been great. Like she gives me all kinds of auditions. It's like it's great to be able to get your foot in the door and like do the auditions for these different projects. Like I've auditioned for a bunch of video games. I've auditioned for a bunch of different things that have been in the city. But you also can't just rely only on your agent. You also have to go out and be like, okay, I have to find gigs myself. And more importantly, I have to make gigs for myself, because I feel like we're in a world now where you can't, like, it's not like the old school way of like you have to wait around and like get permission to act. Like it's more, you have to, like, you could build your own social media thing. You could go out and shoot stuff. You could find directors that need actors. You could find writers to like write you stuff so that you could produce your own thing, so that you can get out there and do whatever it is you have to do. It's just, you have to be more of an entrepreneur about it, I think, than maybe in the old school days, or if you want to go to like a larger city and just like spam auditions like crazy. It's totally a viable way of doing it still. I think there really is like 3 ways of doing it. You either are kind of born into it and lucky and you have like a family that like can kind of give you that leg up so that you can get started. You're either you do what I just said, where you build your own work and like you kind of approach it like as an entrepreneur and like look for those opportunities to make your own work or to provide a service for someone else, like those kinds of things. And or, because I think you need to do both of these at the same time, just audition like crazy. Like that is the job. Auditioning's the job. Like acting is fun. Auditioning's the job. Yeah.
2 more questions, maybe 3. How do you? It's tough to be in the industry, and again, you've been there longer. Me, 3.5 years. Like, damn, if we were paid for the auditions that we make, we would be millionaires already, right? So
yeah.
How do you stay motivated? Tips, ideas? Because you're right. Like, you do the audition, you send it, and it's very often, in 99.9% of the cases, it's like a black hole.
Yeah, you do like 100 auditions,
and that's it.
hear nothing.
Hear nothing. What keeps you? I mean, eventually, yes, you need to go and do the job and do stuff and find stuff. Otherwise, to your point, to the previous point, you won't have money. But any other things that keep you up and keep you going, not letting go.
It's hard. It's one of those things where it's like nobody likes rejection. You know, like if you're just like any other job, you know, like you have to go apply and you have to do interviews and everybody hates it. Like I mean, not everybody. I'm sure somebody loves doing interviews, but there's like most people don't like rejection. So you go out and you do your job interview and then you don't hear anything, or they say like, no, sorry, you know, whatever. Like that's devastating. You ask a girl out or you ask a guy out and they say no, that's devastating. So like anytime that you don't get that reciprocated like success of like of succeeding in getting something and being rejected for it, it like kind of tears you up a little bit. But I think that you just get to this point where you look at it like, instead of being devastated after, you go like, yeah, but I got the chance to do this. You know what I mean? Like you look at, you almost have to beat it into your own head of like, I'm going to take this positively instead. Like I got the chance to have 15 seconds in front of an LA casting director. I got the chance to have 15 seconds like in front of, I don't know, whatever show is casting in town. I got the chance to do these things. I got the chance to act, you know what I mean? Like, and not everybody gets that chance. So it's really cool to be able to go out there and do that. And I know like a lot of people will sit there and go like, yeah, but you're still not getting the job, you know, like whatever. But I see it as like, yeah, but if I didn't try, I'm definitely not getting it. Yeah, you know, like if I didn't go for it, I'm definitely not getting it. So like, that's the same philosophy for acting in general for me. It's just like, that's what I want to do. I've known it since I was 15 years old, like when I started, you know, like, so I basically said, I will not give this up until like I literally am homeless on the street. And like, that was the choice I made. And even like my dad calls me all the time. He's like, are you okay for money? I'm like, Dad, I chose this, you know,
choice,
like, yeah, this was my choice. I chose to not always be able to have money or like to be worried about like, you know, cause I think at one point I was like, $6,000 in credit card debt, like at one point, and then yeah, it was crazy. And then guess what? I booked a role and I paid it all off. Like so, it was just like you can't give up. Like you just got to keep going. It's dangerous. You can't really make necessarily long-term plans because, like I said, you have to be smart about your finance and you have to choose this. Even when I'm choosing, like let's say if I'm dating someone, I'm very upfront with that. I'll be like, listen, this is my life. This is what I want to do. It's not stable. Like, so really when a lot of like, you know, more famous or like more in the limelight actors like say this thing of like, don't do it unless it's the only thing, like I agree with that. I really think it's a strong message to anybody who wants to pursue this, is the idea that it's really hard and you have to make a lot of sacrifices, so you better love it and it better be the thing that you want to do, because you know it's not easy.
Yeah, be ready for the trade-offs.
Yeah, exactly. That you're making. But it is a blast, and that's the cool part. Like you get to live this really cool life where you walk into work and like one day you're a doctor and then the next day you're like a serial killer and then the day after that you're a knight or something, you know, like, so that's really cool. Yeah.
What's next for Nathan?
I'm actually writing a book.
Oh.
Yeah, I decided like approaching authors and like asking them for permission to do their project. I was like, why am I doing that when I also love storytelling and I also like I've written a few scripts and I've worked on like a few like I've been role playing like writing role play stuff since I was like 16 years old. So I've always loved writing and so like I was basically like I have enough contracts now where I just have repeat customers for narration. So I was like, I'm just gonna write my own, like I'm gonna write my own book, like make it I'm gonna make my own fantasy series. It's called Zafria. Yeah. And I'm actually working with my current girlfriend on it, which is pretty fun because we're both doing it together. And so the idea is that I would then narrate that, obviously, and then I'd be able to sell the book and the narration. I mean, if people like to read it,
and
we'll
then
see.
maybe film it as well and do a script and do.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That's another.
I don't
Let's
know.
look forward.
That would be
You're
that would be
forward.
like a little bit down the road because you'd need quite a bit of money to do fantasy well. But yeah,
You have some actors here.
that's true.
Oh my god. Okay, cool. Thank you. It was very inspiring. I mean, like I knew some bits and pieces of your acting journey before, but I loved it. I think like this mindset, that's something that every single person who goes into the industry should have.
Yeah.
It will just make life easier.
Yeah, you really have to approach it like this is what I love to do. This is what I want to do. I have to make sacrifices to get it. But it also doesn't like I said, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's like you made this decision, so live with it, and there will be ups and downs, and every time there is an up, you really have to go for it. You really have to be like, yes, this is finally like vindication. You know, I've been I did 100 auditions, and finally I booked this thing.
101, finally I got it.
Yeah, 100. The 102nd audition I found. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was really inspiring to talk to you. So
thanks for having me.
looking forward to the book and to the filming.
Yeah.
Filming based on the book. Cool. Thank you for watching us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and see you at the next episode.